And we're delighted to welcome back General Ben Hodges, a retired former commander, US Army Europe, and a regular contributor to TVP World. General, welcome back. Good to see you.
Thank you for the privilege.
It's a pleasure, sir. So we're seeing more and more momentum, aren't we? Countries like Sweden, Lithuania and Poland, of course, consistently in finally approving and sending military and other aid to Ukraine. This is, if we zoom out a little bit, this is actually rather concerning, isn't it? Because Putin's going to be thinking, well, I can move quickly, and we've seen it takes these countries 2.5 years to get anything done at all. Would you agree?
Well, of course, I'm glad to see that the pressure is mounting and that European allies are leading the way here to authorize Ukraine to use weapons that we provide to hit legitimate targets on the other side of the Russian border. Now, the Russians should be very worried about this because once Ukraine starts hitting targets on the other side of the border, it will be very difficult for Russian forces to sustain their operations from the safe haven they've been enjoying so far. And it will become increasingly difficult for them to continue launching missiles and airstrikes against innocent civilians inside Ukraine. The biggest frustration for me is that it's taken so long to even get to this point, particularly by my own country, the United States. We are behind on this.
Right. And now, having that in mind and seeing that perhaps that might be a breakthrough in the conflict. Now, not all NATO member states are for the use of NATO weapons against targets in Russia. For instance, Germany is still quite reluctant. Why do you think now? Where is it coming from, really? Why do you think this reluctance is there, really?
So, of course, yesterday or the day before, Chancellor Scholz did indicate, not strongly, but did indicate that Ukraine had the right to strike targets on the other side of the border. Where Germany has fallen short is a continued reluctance to provide a exceptionally important or capable weapon, the Taurus, which would be very useful in helping Ukraine destroy Russian logistics, Russian headquarters, Russian artillery. And that's the best way to undermine Russia's only advantage of mass is by hitting those targets, artillery, logistics, and headquarters. And of course, you need some long-range precision to do that. But this really, Alexandra, is a manifestation of the failure of the United States and Germany and some other countries to clearly define our strategic objective. What is it that we want to accomplish? If my president and the Bundeskanzler, for example, were to say it's in our interest that Ukraine defeats Russia in Ukraine, and we want Ukraine to win, then all of these restrictions and bad policies would fall away, and we'd have much better, more effective policy for helping Ukraine to win. And I think, and you asked the question, where does this reluctance come from? I think, number one, there's a excessive overestimation of what Russia can do. I absolutely do not believe that Russia will use a nuclear weapon. They have them. They don't care how many innocent people they kill. But there really is no benefit for them strategically if they use a nuclear weapon. And then finally, I think we still have some European leaders that don't grasp the significance of what happens if Ukraine fails. If Ukraine fails, there will be millions more Ukrainian refugees coming into Poland, Germany, the Netherlands, and the Russian army is going to absorb hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian troops that will be forced into service. So the Russian army will actually grow in strength as it approaches Poland's border or Moldova or the Baltics.
Yes, it is a concerning situation all round. Now, General, I want to talk about the bombing we've seen. I mean, Kharkiv is the latest example, but of course it's been going on throughout the war, and the use of glide bombs, which, as I understand it, are released by aircraft over in Russian airspace and are therefore immune to any defense systems. F-16s, however, would certainly help the situation. What is the situation with regard to the delivery, finally, of F-16s to Ukraine?
Well, of course, Poland was a leader more than 2 years ago in offering to provide aircraft to Ukraine to increase Ukraine's ability to defend their own airspace. And the United States blocked it. And I think, again, this is another example of our failure. Because we don't have a clearly defined objective, we end up with bad policy decisions or no policy decisions. And so the F-16 delivery is just an example of that. But things like glide bombs or going against civilian targets, 2 points here. First, the entire free world should be outraged and every day highlighting the fact that Russia is willingly, intentionally targeting civilian infrastructure and civilians. And the not just the ICC, the International Criminal Court, but every decent government official should be highlighting this every day. And we should be naming and shaming every officer from the Russian Ministry of Defense that is anywhere in the chain of command on decisions about where they attack, so that these people know that they are absolutely going to be held accountable someday. The other part of air defense, of course, is that it is better to kill the archer rather than trying to knock down or intercept every one of his arrows. So if we can enable Ukraine to hit the airfields from which aircraft are taking off and launching these glide bombs, that would significantly reduce Russia's ability to kill innocent people.
And speaking of the ways to reduce now Russian abilities, but on the other hand, of course, we have to think about challenges that might arise. So what challenges to your mind might arise if Ukraine starts regularly using NATO weapons against Russian territory? How do you see it?
Well, I think what will happen is that Russia's abilities will be degraded. That's what will happen. Look, the Russians, the Kremlin, have been threatening nuclear weapons and all sorts of horrible escalatory reactions from the very beginning. And they see that it's worked because we have hesitated. Here we are almost 2.5 years after the start of the large-scale invasion, and we still are hesitating to provide or even say that we want Ukraine to win. That just tells you that the Russian threats work because they are threats. But I think that the Kremlin knows that if they ever do actually use a nuclear weapon, a tactical nuclear weapon somewhere, there is no upside for them. They may destroy another city, they may kill Ukrainians, but the Ukrainians have made it clear that they're not going to stop. And I think the Chinese have indicated to the Kremlin that they would not support Russia if Russia used a nuclear weapon. And my own president has said that Russia will suffer catastrophic consequences if they used a nuclear weapon. So I really think for the Kremlin, the best effect they get from their nukes is the threat when they don't actually use them.
Absolutely. General Hodges, thank you very much for coming along and sharing your expertise with our audience. Have a good day, sir, and we look forward to seeing you again shortly.
Thanks again for the privilege.
Thank you.